There's a bunch of different ways to add texture to your artwork in Adobe Fresco, and they're all pretty easy. In this video, I'm going to show you a handful of different ways to do it, and you'll be ready to give your artwork some vintage, distressed, textured, punk rock, or whatever vibe that you're trying to go for, and it'll be kind of fun. So let's get into it. The easiest way to do this is to simply add texture by importing an image of texture and then using some of the different layer settings to control how it interacts with your artwork. So I'm going to come over here to the photo icon on my toolbar near the bottom, right above the swatches. And I'm going to choose Files. And I have some paper textures saved here in my iCloud file that I got from Retro Supply Co. I'll link to those below if you're interested in. But you could also just scan in some paper. You could find some on the internet. You could take a picture of some paper. Do whatever you want. You can get the Adobe Capture app and use that to automatically scan in some cool textures and import them into your libraries and have them ready to go. But for now, I'm just gonna grab some paper here. So I will choose one of these. We'll just get this handmade paper here. And it's gonna default to fitting it within your composition. So I'm just gonna scale this up so it covers everything. And you'll notice it's going beyond the edges of my composition. And that's because it's not a regular pixel layer at this point, it's an image layer. And the cool thing about this is if you wanted something in your file to use as a reference, but you didn't want it to take up space on your artboard, when it's in image mode like this, you can drag it outside of your work area and it'll stay there, easy to see. So I'm gonna move my artboard back to where it was, and I'm gonna convert this to a pixel layer so that it crops. And now if I go into my layer properties, I can change the blend mode to multiply. And what this does is it lets all of the stuff below come through. And that way you get this texture within the artwork, which is kind of cool. Another thing that you can do if you like this texture, but you're like, oh, I'm just not crazy about how it's yellowing all of the artwork, you can come over here to the right side and make an adjustment layer. So you can go to Hue Saturation, and here you can drag the saturation all the way down to get rid of that yellow. And you'll notice it's doing it to the whole image, and that's not what we want. We just want to take the yellow out of the paper. So all we have to do now is just tap this clipping mask option, and it's just going to affect that paper layer. If we turn off the artwork, you'll see that our texture now is just grayscale and doesn't have that yellow hue to it. So we turn our artwork back on, we can toggle this adjustment layer on and off to see what difference it's made. So although this looks pretty cool, it doesn't really have that same textured effect because the artwork still looks pristine. So I'm gonna show you some different ways that we can rough this up a little bit to give it that same sort of weathered look that it would have if it was on this sort of distressed paper. So for now, I'm gonna turn off this paper layer. And what I'm gonna do is make a new layer on top of all of this so that we can work in a non-destructive way. So we're not messing up the actual artwork, and we can experiment with different textures and how it'll affect what we've got going on here. So on this new layer, I'm gonna fill it in white, and then I'm gonna grab black, and then I'm gonna use some different textured brushes to create just an overall texture that I can screen the artwork through, and the areas that are black are what will show the image, whereas what's white, the image will not come through. And this will sort of break up the image so that it looks like the print has been distressed to some degree. So there's tons and tons and tons of different textured brushes that you can use here. I have some of my favorites saved. I'm gonna try to use a bunch that are free to people who are using Adobe Fresco with the premium version. I think a lot of these will still be available in the free version as well. I think the majority of these all can be found in the mega pack. When you're in the brush menu, if you go to all and then add brushes and discover new brushes, you'll see you'll have access to all of Kyle Webster's amazing brushes. And if you just look for the mega pack, this has over 300 brushes that are just incredible. You can add those and you'll be able to find the brushes that I'm using here. Let's go grab one of those brushes, check out this Supreme Spatter texture. We'll see what this does. So you'll see I'm just gonna paint some grit here And then we can do a little test to see how this looks. What I'll do is I will click on this layer, go to my layer properties, and then I'm going to change this to screen. And what screen does is it only shows through the black areas. So we can move this over and we can come in here and add more until we get the results that we want. So maybe we want this to be a little more fine texture and maybe not so large in the distressing. So we can use that smaller brush size. As you can see here, it's giving us this sort of cool look where it's breaking it apart. We can also do the same thing that we did before, where we set this layer to a clipping mask to just this Garfield tiger. And now you'll see that it's only applying it to that area. And now if we take this and add the paper layer again, you'll see it's got just this overall look that's a little bit more fun and a little bit cooler. So I think having it affect the blue makes more sense for this application. Darken up some of these sides a little bit. You can grab another texture brush. So use this ink brayer. Yeah, that's what I wanted. So now we can kind of smooth this out a little bit. We can also adjust the opacity so that it's not as aggressive. And another thing we could do on top of all of this is to take this purple color, and on this layer, I'll just take like a smaller gritty texture. Let's try this spatter one. We can come in here and just sort of put some of this like purple as like an overspray thing to make that imprint look a little less perfect. And you can play around using like the other colors. Maybe I'll take this pink and come in here, maybe like use it to add some tone to the corner of the eye. You can play around endlessly with this stuff. You could do multiple layers of this kind of thing. To give it an even more authentic look, you could kind of make it look like it was printed in multiple colors, like a screen print, and it was like shifted a little bit. So if you had something like this where the line work is very bold, you could go ahead and select that, come over here, grab the magic wand, and then we can just come in here and select all the dark purple stuff. And now we can click on this layer and go to cut selection and then paste selection. And now our purple is on its own layer. So we could just like shift that over a little bit. That gives an even cooler look. And another thing you can do, if you're not afraid to just go in and mess up your artwork, you could always just duplicate the layer to be safe. I'll just do that for safety's sake. So I'm gonna duplicate this line work layer, and then I'm gonna drag this one to the bottom and just turn it off because we don't need it. What we can do now is try to just break up this edge so it's not so perfect. So we can come in here, find a brush, just like a gritty brush. So this is the Kyle's Inkbox City Gritty, also from the Mega Pack. And that's what that looks like. So it's just kind of a gritty, rough brush. Instead of painting with that brush, I'm gonna use it like an eraser. So I'm gonna double tap the modifier button, and you'll see that's blue. And now what I can do is come in here and just sort of roughen up the edges of that line to just break it up so it's a little less perfect. So I'm just erasing like little pieces of it. You come in here and make it look like a highlight on the eye. You could like come in within the artwork and do some stuff like that. Have some fun. You could even do it with like something more aggressive, like maybe this, I don't know, whatever this is. You could come in here and just like take bigger chunks out if you wanted to. We could do the same thing on the orange layer. I guess it's not just orange, it's all these colors. Use it to give like a little bit of a shadow on the bottom of the nose. Pretty cool. Pretty cool if you ask me. I told you it was going to be pretty easy. I think you're ready for the next level. Check out this other video where I show you how you can use different kinds of textures to layer color to give a really cool Rezo print look using these Retro Supply Co. Rezo brushes. But you could do the same thing with some other textures that I outline in the video. But I think if you liked this, you're really going to like this video. All right, good talk.